What would you do if your own sister seated you at the kids' table at her birthday dinner, then told you that you weren't important enough for a proper place setting? Today, I'm sharing the most painful and transformative story of my life. A story about family betrayal, standing up for yourself, and the unexpected journey that led to healing. If you've ever felt undervalued by family members, if you've ever had to choose between your dignity and keeping the peace, this story is for you. Make sure to hit that like button and subscribe if you've had to stand up for yourself in similar situations. And drop a comment letting me know where you're watching from. I love connecting with viewers from around the world. Let me start by introducing myself. I'm Allison, 29 years old, and this story centers around my relationship with my older sister Jennifer. To understand how devastating her betrayal was, you need to know how close we once were. Growing up in our modest suburban home in Michigan, Jennifer and I shared everything, literally. We had the same bedroom, and with just 3 years between us, she was the older sister I looked up to throughout my childhood. We were inseparable. Picture this: two little girls building elaborate blanket forts that stretched across our entire bedroom, whispering secrets under flashlights long after bedtime, creating our own private world that no one else could enter. When playground bullies targeted one of us, the other would immediately jump to our defense. We had each other's backs, no questions asked. I still remember the day Jennifer taught me to ride my bike. I was 6, she was 9, and I was terrified of falling. While our parents watched from the porch, Jennifer ran alongside me for what felt like hours, her hand steady on the bike seat, encouraging me with every wobble. "You've got this, Allie," she'd shout, using the nickname only she was allowed to call me. When I finally found my balance and rode solo for the first time, she cheered louder than anyone. These memories, and there are hundreds of them, make what happened at her birthday dinner so much more devastating. They're also why I fought so hard for so long to maintain our relationship, even when it became clear she no longer valued it. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me tell you how we went from being best friends to strangers. Our relationship began shifting during our college years. Though the changes were subtle at first, I chose what I considered the practical route: state university, education major, working part-time jobs to minimize student debt. I wanted to become a teacher, and I was willing to make financial sacrifices to pursue that dream. Jennifer took a completely different path. She attended an expensive private college on a partial scholarship, immersing herself in a world I'd never experienced. While I was studying in the library and serving tables at a local diner, she was attending fraternity parties and networking events with classmates whose parents owned businesses I'd only heard about on the news. The different social circles we moved in started creating a subtle divide. She began dating wealthy classmates while I focused on my teaching program. Our conversations, which had once flowed effortlessly, became stilted. She'd tell me about spring break trips to Europe, while I talked about my summer job at a literacy camp for struggling students. Here's where I need you to understand something crucial. I was never jealous of Jennifer's opportunities. I was genuinely happy for her, but I started to sense that she was becoming embarrassed by my choices. The real turning point came 5 years ago, when Jennifer met Derek. He came from what people call old money. His family had been wealthy for generations. He worked at his father's investment firm, drove cars that cost more than most people's houses, and introduced my sister to a lifestyle she'd never experienced. Suddenly, designer clothes replaced her thrift store finds. International vacations replaced our traditional sister weekends at the lake. Expensive restaurants replaced our favorite pizza joint, where we'd spent countless hours talking about everything and nothing. I want to be clear, I didn't begrudge Jennifer these experiences. I was happy she was happy. But with each passing month, I watched my sister transform into someone I barely recognized. Someone increasingly preoccupied with status and appearances. Meanwhile, I was building my own life. I completed my education degree and secured a position teaching 3rd grade, at Hillside Elementary. I absolutely love my job, even though the salary is modest. The joy of watching my students progress, of seeing that moment when a difficult concept finally clicks for them, that gives me a fulfillment that no paycheck could match. Jennifer used to understand this passion. During her visits home from college, she'd volunteer in my classroom, reading to the kids and helping with art projects. She'd tell me how much she admired my dedication to making a difference in children's lives. But something fundamental changed after she met Derek. She started introducing me at social gatherings with a dismissive tone that cut deep. "This is my sister Allison. She's just a teacher." The word "just" became a weapon, diminishing everything I'd worked for. And here's where the story gets really difficult, because this pattern might sound familiar to some of you watching. The shift became more pronounced at family gatherings. Jennifer would dominate conversations with stories about exotic vacations and country club memberships, while I listened quietly, not wanting to mention my summer teaching struggling students or my weekend volunteering at the literacy center. It felt like my accomplishments had become irrelevant in her new world. I started making excuses to avoid her dinner parties. The last few I'd attended, I'd felt completely out of place among Derek's wealthy friends. They'd talk about investment portfolios and vacation properties while I sat there with nothing to contribute. Derek would make pointed comments about people in service professions, always while looking directly at me. When our parents died in a car accident 2 years ago, everything accelerated. Mom and Dad had always been the glue holding our family together, hosting Sunday dinners and holiday gatherings that temporarily bridged the growing gap between Jennifer and me. Without their stabilizing presence, Jennifer fully embraced Derek's materialistic world. I was left grieving not just my parents, but the sister I once knew. The funeral was telling. While I was organizing the service and handling the practical details, Jennifer was concerned about whether her black dress was appropriate for the type of people who would be attending. This is where I need to pause and talk about something important. Grief affects people differently, and I tried to give Jennifer the benefit of the doubt. But looking back, I can see this was when our relationship truly broke down. After the funeral, Jennifer inherited our mother's jewelry and a few valuable antiques. She showed no interest in the photo albums, letters, or personal mementos that held our family's history. I kept everything else, unable to part with these tangible connections to our parents. The months that followed were lonely in ways I'd never experienced. Jennifer canceled our lunch plans repeatedly, always with last-minute texts, citing vague excuses about Derek's work events or impromptu shopping trips. When we did speak on the phone, she'd cut conversations short or talk exclusively about her recent purchases or renovations to their lakefront home. Looking back, there were so many warning signs I chose to ignore. Last Christmas, Derek and Jennifer gave everyone in our extended family personalized, thoughtful gifts, except me. I received a generic gift card with someone else's name printed on the envelope. At their housewarming party, Derek loudly commented on my sensible shoes, making air quotes while his friends snickered. When I tried to contribute to a conversation about education policy, he cut me off with, "Well, you'd know about that, wouldn't you?" His tone made it clear he didn't consider my perspective valuable. Jennifer never defended me, not once. She'd either laugh along or simply change the subject, leaving me to absorb the humiliation alone. Here's what I want you to understand. I made excuses for every single incident. "She's busy." He doesn't mean it that way. Family is complicated. I was so invested in maintaining our relationship that I convinced myself these weren't patterns of deliberate disrespect. The incidents escalated in frequency and severity. Jennifer promised to meet me for coffee to discuss plans for our parents' memorial service anniversary, then texted an hour after our scheduled meeting time that she was getting a facial with friends instead. She forgot to invite me to our cousin's wedding until the day before, making it impossible for me to attend. Each time, I swallowed my hurt and found ways to rationalize her behavior. I was so afraid of losing my only sister that I accepted treatment I would never tolerate from anyone else. This brings us to the incident that changed everything. Jennifer's 32nd birthday dinner at Aspen, the most exclusive restaurant in our city. When the formal invitation arrived, I was genuinely hopeful. Maybe this would be our chance to reconnect, to remember what we once meant to each other. I spent 2 weeks searching for the perfect gift. I finally found a vintage silver locket, identical to one our grandmother had given Jennifer years ago, which she'd lost during a college move. I had it engraved with our grandmother's initials and spent nearly a full paycheck on it, money I really couldn't afford to spend. That gift represented everything I hoped we could recapture in our relationship, our shared history, family connection, and the genuine affection that once existed between us. I wrapped it carefully, imagining Jennifer's face when she opened it. What happened next shocked me to my core, and I need to tell you every detail because the cruelty was so calculated. I spent hours preparing for the dinner. I carefully selected my outfit, a navy blue dress I'd splurged on specifically for this occasion. I spent extra time on my hair and makeup, wanting to fit into Jennifer's sophisticated world. I even practiced conversation topics about investment portfolios and vacation properties, determined to be the perfect guest. As I drove to the restaurant, I felt a mixture of anxiety and hope. The carefully wrapped gift sat on the passenger seat beside me, a symbol of my desire to rebuild our relationship. I had no idea that within an hour, I'd be driving back along the same road alone and in tears. The valet took my keys with a barely concealed look of surprise as he glanced between me and my 10-year-old sedan. Around me, guests arrived in luxury vehicles that cost more than my annual salary. I smoothed my dress nervously and approached the restaurant's gleaming glass doors. Inside, Aspen was everything I'd expected: soaring ceilings, crystal chandeliers, and intimate tables spaced for privacy. A illuminated glass fountain served as the centerpiece, casting a soft blue glow across the white marble floor. The maitre d' consulted his tablet and led me through the main dining area toward a semi-private section reserved for Jennifer's party. Jennifer looked stunning in a red designer dress, her hair professionally styled, laughing as she accepted champagne from a waiter. Derek stood beside her in a perfectly tailored suit, his arm possessively around her waist. Around them, about 20 guests mingled, all impeccably dressed, all fitting seamlessly into this world of privilege. Jennifer noticed me and waved, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. "Allison, you made it." She air-kissed near my cheeks, careful not to smudge her makeup. "Derek, look who's here." Derek's handshake was firm but brief. "Allison, nice of you to join us. Jennifer was just saying she wasn't sure you'd come." The comment stung, but I pushed through. "I wouldn't miss my sister's birthday," I replied, handing Jennifer the gift bag. "Happy birthday, Jen." She took it with a distracted thanks before immediately setting it on a table with other presents, most in packaging from luxury retailers I recognized from magazines but had never shopped at. Then came the moment that changed everything. "Let me show you to your seat," Derek said, guiding me not toward the elegantly set main table where adults were gathering, but toward a smaller table in the corner. At first, I didn't understand. Then I saw the coloring placemats and crayon cups. A booster seat stood at one end. "This is the kids' table," I said, confusion turning rapidly to humiliation. Derek's smirk confirmed my worst fear. "Only important guests sit with the adults," he said loud enough that several nearby conversations paused. "Jennifer thought you'd be more comfortable here. You're a teacher, after all, used to being with children. I want you to imagine this moment, the blood rushing to your face as you realize what's happening. The curious and pitying glances from other guests, the crushing realization that this humiliation was planned." I looked around desperately for Jennifer, finding her watching the interaction from across the room. Instead of intervening, she simply turned back to her conversation, tacitly approving Derek's behavior. There must be some mistake, I said quietly, trying to maintain my dignity. I'll just speak with Jennifer. I made my way across the restaurant floor, conscious of every step, every whispered comment. Jennifer, there seems to be some confusion about the seating. She glanced at me with impatience. What's the problem now, Allison? Derek seated me at the children's table, I explained, keeping my voice low. Jennifer sighed dramatically. The adult table is full with our friends and Derek's business associates. I thought you'd understand. Understand being publicly humiliated? I asked, my voice cracking, despite my efforts to remain composed. You're being dramatic, she replied. It's just a seating arrangement. Here's where I need to pause and tell you something important. In that moment, I had a choice. I could have accepted the humiliation, sat at that kid's table, and pretended everything was fine. That's what the old me would have done. But something had shifted inside me. Maybe it was months of accumulated slights, or maybe it was seeing my sister's complete lack of empathy. Whatever it was, I found my voice. Fine, I said. I'll sit wherever you want me to. Just have them set a place for me. Jennifer exchanged a look with Derek, a silent communication that filled me with dread. Then she turned back to me with devastating casualness. Actually, there's no place setting for you at either table. We weren't sure you'd come. I RSVP'd, yes, 2 weeks ago, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. Jennifer shrugged, glancing around as though worried her guests might notice our conversation. Well, I guess you're not that important. Just grab a seat wherever, and I'll have the server bring you a setting. The casual cruelty of those words, I guess you're not that important, hit me like a physical blow. In that moment, everything became crystal clear. The missing place setting wasn't an oversight. This entire situation was a deliberate attempt to put me in my place, to demonstrate just how far outside their circle I'd fallen. I looked at my sister, this stranger in expensive clothes, who once shared ice cream cones and midnight secrets with me, and made the most important decision of my adult life. Then I'm leaving, I said, my voice steady, as I reached for the gift bag containing the locket. Happy birthday, Jennifer. Jennifer froze, clearly not expecting this response. For a brief moment, I caught a glimpse of uncertainty in her eyes, quickly replaced by defensive anger. You're overreacting as usual, she said coldly. If you leave now, don't expect another invitation. I wouldn't want one, I replied, and walked away. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply refuse to accept unacceptable treatment. Sometimes walking away is the only way to preserve your dignity. As I moved toward the exit, I heard whispered conversations resume behind me. The valet looked surprised to see me returning so soon, but fetched my car without comment. It was only when I was safely inside my vehicle, doors locked, and the restaurant disappearing in my rearview mirror, that I allowed the tears to fall. The drive home passed in a blur of tears and traffic lights. Inside my apartment, I collapsed onto the couch, still in my carefully chosen dress. My phone began buzzing with messages from mutual acquaintances who'd witnessed the scene. My best friend Kara arrived within the hour, bearing wine and fierce loyalty. That absolute witch, she said, pulling me into a hug. And that husband of hers is even worse. As we talked through the night, I found myself revealing incidents I'd never shared with anyone. Years of accumulated slights and humiliations I'd been too ashamed to admit. Seeing it all laid out chronologically was both validating and heartbreaking. Here's what I learned that night. When you start listing incidents of mistreatment, and the list goes on for hours, it's not a series of misunderstandings. It's a pattern of abuse. The next morning brought a text from Jennifer. You made a scene last night. We need to talk tomorrow. I'll come by after yoga. No apology, no acknowledgement of what had happened. Just an expectation that I'd be waiting for her convenience, ready to absorb whatever justification she offered. For the first time in our relationship, I didn't immediately respond. I needed time to process what had happened and decide how to move forward. Jennifer arrived at my apartment the next morning, looking flawless in designer yoga wear. She brushed past me without invitation, immediately going on the offensive. "You could have answered my text," she said. "I was worried." "Were you?" I asked. "That would be a first?" What followed was the most honest conversation we'd had in years. Jennifer tried to minimize what had happened, calling it just a seating arrangement and accusing me of being too sensitive. But I was done accepting her gaslighting. "This isn't about last night, Jennifer," I said. "This has been happening for years. Ever since you met Derek, you've treated me like an embarrassment." The conversation that followed revealed painful truths that had been festering for years. Jennifer accused me of being judgmental about her lifestyle, of looking down on her for enjoying nice things. The accusation was so backward it stunned me. I'd never judged her choices. I'd only wanted her to stop judging mine. Then she revealed something that explained everything. "Do you know how hard it was growing up in your shadow? The perfect daughter who never caused problems." Jennifer had convinced herself that our parents favored me, that I was the responsible one who made all the right choices. She'd been carrying this resentment for years, using it to justify her treatment of me. But the conversation took a darker turn when she revealed the real reason for her behavior. Derek's investment firm was under federal investigation for fraud. They'd been living beyond their means, desperately trying to maintain appearances while their world crumbled around them. Even this revelation didn't excuse what she'd done. When I offered to help, she rejected it, choosing pride over reconciliation. After Jennifer left, I began working with a therapist who specialized in family dynamics. Dr. Winters helped me understand that family bonds don't justify emotional abuse, and that sometimes loving someone means refusing to enable their harmful behavior. Setting boundaries isn't about punishing Jennifer, Dr. Winters explained. It's about creating conditions where a healthier relationship might eventually be possible. I established clear boundaries. No more accepting last-minute cancellations. No more tolerating belittling comments about my career or lifestyle. No more pretending Derek's behavior was acceptable. This is crucial for anyone watching who's dealing with toxic family members. Boundaries aren't walls. They're gates with rules for entry. 2 months passed without contact from Jennifer. The silence was both painful and liberating. I threw myself into my teaching, developing new projects that earned district recognition. I joined a hiking group, discovering unexpected joy in physical challenges and new friendships. Most importantly, I began dating Lucas, a fellow teacher who valued me for exactly who I was. For the first time in years, I felt truly appreciated and respected. The unexpected turning point came on a rainy Tuesday evening. I returned home to find a small envelope slipped under my door. Inside was a single sheet of paper with just 3 words in Jennifer's distinctive handwriting: "I need help." I immediately tried calling her, but got no answer. Frantic calls to mutual friends revealed that Derek's fraud schemes had finally collapsed. Federal investigators had seized their assets. Most devastatingly, Derek had transferred remaining funds to an offshore account before disappearing, leaving Jennifer to face the consequences alone. Everything Jennifer had sacrificed our relationship for, the status, the wealth, the perfect life, had been built on lies. Around midnight, my doorbell rang. Jennifer stood in the hallway with a small suitcase, looking nothing like the polished socialite I'd last seen. Without her usual perfect makeup and designer clothes, she looked younger, more vulnerable, more like the sister I remembered. "I didn't know where else to go," she said, her voice rough from crying. I stepped aside wordlessly, letting her enter. While I reheated leftover pasta, Jennifer slowly revealed what had happened. Derek's investment schemes had collapsed. Federal agents had frozen their accounts. Their house was being seized. Even her jewelry had been taken as evidence. The most devastating part? Derek had planned his escape, leaving Jennifer to face the music alone. Jennifer stayed on my couch for 3 months while she rebuilt her life from scratch. The woman who emerged from this crucible was neither the adoring sister of our childhood nor the status-obsessed stranger of recent years. She was someone new, humbled by circumstance, but also discovering reserves of strength she hadn't known she possessed. "I don't know who I am without all the trappings," she admitted one evening. "For so long, my identity was Mrs. Derek Harrington, with the perfect house and designer wardrobe." "You get to decide who you want to be now," I told her. "That's terrifying, but also incredibly freeing." Our relationship rebuilt itself slowly, carefully, like archaeologists reconstructing something precious from fragments. There were difficult moments when old patterns threatened to resurface. Jennifer would make a dismissive comment about my apartment, then catch herself with a horrified expression. I'd bristle at her reorganizing my kitchen, then remind myself that learning to share space again required patience from both of us. Jennifer found work as an administrative assistant at a local nonprofit, far below her qualifications, but she approached it with unexpected humility. "I want to earn my way back," she explained, "not just financially, but as a person worth respecting." 3 months after Jennifer's world collapsed, I suggested hosting a small dinner at my apartment. Not an elaborate affair like her birthday celebration, but a gathering of people who had supported us both through difficult times. As we prepared the meal together, I watched Jennifer carefully arrange place settings at my dining table, positioning a chair for each person, including a place of honor for herself. "Remember the last time we were at a dinner together?" she asked, catching my eye with a rueful smile. "How could I forget?" "I put you at the kids' table," she said, wincing at the memory, "and told you that you weren't important enough for a place setting. I was horrible." "Yes, you were," I agreed, without rancor. "But that's not who you are now, and that's what matters." The dinner was nothing like the elaborate social events Jennifer had once hosted, but the genuine laughter and conversation filled my apartment with warmth no expensive restaurant could match. 6 months after Jennifer's world collapsed, we stood together at our parents' graveside on the 3rd anniversary of their passing. In contrast to previous years when we'd visited separately to avoid conflict, we now placed flowers together, sharing memories rather than maintaining strained silence. "I never thanked you properly," Jennifer said, as we walked back to our cars, "for being there when I had nowhere else to go, for not saying, 'I told you so,' for giving me a chance to become someone better than I was." "That's what family does," I replied simply. "The real kind, not the kind that exists for appearances." "I'm trying to be the real kind now," she nodded. "You're succeeding," I assured her. "Our relationship today is different from what it was in childhood, but it's perhaps stronger for having been broken and deliberately, carefully reconstructed." Looking back on this journey, I've learned several crucial lessons that I want to share with you. First, family isn't defined by unconditional tolerance of mistreatment. Blood relationships don't give anyone the right to abuse, diminish, or humiliate you. Love without respect isn't love at all. Second, sometimes walking away is the most loving thing you can do. By refusing to enable Jennifer's behavior, I forced her to confront the person she'd become. If I'd continued accepting her treatment, she might never have had the opportunity to grow. Third, true worth comes from within, not from external validation. Jennifer's obsession with status and appearance was ultimately empty. The relationships worth keeping are those that allow you to be fully yourself. Fourth, boundaries are acts of self-love, not selfishness. Setting limits on what you'll accept isn't about punishing others. It's about creating space for healthier interactions. Finally, redemption is possible, but it requires genuine change. Jennifer didn't just apologize. She fundamentally altered her values and behavior. That's the difference between real growth and empty words. If you've made it this far in my story, you're probably dealing with similar family dynamics. Maybe you have a sibling who treats you poorly, or parents who favor one child over another, or relatives who make you feel small at family gatherings. Here's what I want you to know. You deserve better. You deserve to be treated with respect, dignity, and kindness, especially by the people who claim to love you. I know it's scary to set boundaries with family. The fear of rejection, of being cut off, of losing people who've been part of your life forever. That fear is real and valid. But living in fear of confrontation while accepting mistreatment isn't living at all. The most important seat at any table is the one you claim for yourself with dignity and self-respect. Some of you watching might be thinking, but what if they never change? What if setting boundaries means losing them forever? That's a possibility you have to be prepared for. But here's the thing. If someone consistently chooses to treat you poorly rather than respect your boundaries, you haven't lost a loving relationship. You've freed yourself from an abusive one. Jennifer and I were lucky. Her world had to completely collapse before she could see what she'd become. But she was still capable of growth and change. Not everyone is. Some people will choose their pride, their ego, their need to feel superior over maintaining relationships with people who love them. That's not your fault, and it's not your responsibility to fix. Your responsibility is to yourself, to treat yourself with the same compassion you'd show a friend in your situation, to recognize that you can't control how others behave, but you can control how you respond to that behavior. The relationships that survive your boundaries are the ones worth keeping. The ones that don't were never as valuable as you thought they were. I want to hear from you in the comments below. Have you had to establish boundaries with family members? How did it change your relationship? What advice would you give to someone dealing with similar situations? This community we've built together is special because we can share these difficult truths and support each other through challenging times. Your stories matter, your experiences have value, and your healing journey deserves to be witnessed and celebrated. If this video resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more content about personal growth, family dynamics, and healing. Ring the notification bell so you don't miss new videos, and share this with someone who might need to hear this message. Remember, you are worthy of love, respect, and dignity. Don't let anyone, family included, convince you otherwise. Thank you for watching. Thank you for being part of this community. And thank you for having the courage to examine your own relationships and set the boundaries you need to thrive. I'll see you in the next video, where we'll continue exploring how to build the life you deserve.